turn it up.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. The Majurity Conversations 2022 will start in just a couple of minutes. This is a friendly reminder to our on-site guests to turn your mobile phones to silent mode and please keep your masks on at all times. We will also be taking questions via Mentimeter for the panel discussions. So for guests joining us online, do refer to the comment section for details. But if you're on-site with us, there's a program sheet in your tote bag with more information. Thank you very much, and I'll see you very shortly. All right, ladies and gentlemen, as the event is going to begin very shortly, I'd like to invite everyone to take their seats. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us today. As the event will be beginning very shortly, I'd like to invite everybody to take their seats. Thank you very much, and I'll see you shortly. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Majurity Conversations 2022, Charting New Horizons. Coming up, we have an exciting lineup of social impact leaders from San Francisco, New York, Hong Kong, and Singapore. My name is Katanya, you can call me Kate, and I'll be your host for today. The next 2.5 hours will fly by as we dive into conversations that will challenge and inspire us to chart new horizons in our work in the social sector. Today, we'll also witness the official launch of Singapore's first incubation fund for non-profits, the Lamsoon New Horizon Fund. Here to kickstart this year's Majurity Conversations, let's welcome Mr. Martin Tan, CEO of the Majurity Trust. Put your hands together for Martin.
Thank you very much, Kate.
They are real people. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Majurity Conversations 2022. It is really good. You have no idea how excited we are to finally see you. And it's really funny to see every one of you without a box and your virtual background. And also to those who are live on YouTube, a really warm welcome and good morning. We wanted to say hello, people. In 2020, when the pandemic first started, we all had a hard time trying to say hi to each other. And as we were coming in, we were all doing different things, like do we shake hands, do we fist bump, and so on. So when we all first started in 2020, we put out a poster on our WhatsApp and social media to tell people there are many different ways to say hi. So I left a couple out there for you to see. So since we are here in person, and those of you you're watching on YouTube, you can join us and put in your comment chats and use emojis and so on. I'm going to just select 5. So I'm going to ask all of us to stand and use this opportunity to turn to our neighbors around, and you can choose one of these 5. You can do the Vulcan, you can do the Namaste, elbow bump. If you're up for it, you can do the bump as well, okay? All right? So why don't we all stand music, let's get it going, and let's welcome everybody to the Majurity Conversations 2022. That's awesome. That's great. While everyone is standing, I'm going to use this chance. Shall I take a selfie? Everybody smile. That's great. Oh, yes. Thank you very much. Oh, man. How many of you missed that? I really do. Well, welcome to the Majurity Conversation. We designed this as a place for us to be able to have honest conversations, to discuss trends, discuss the challenges, and maybe creative solutions that we can learn from people all around the world, and just having the conversations that we have at the corridor, at coffee sessions, which we still cannot have yet, but we will soon have. Believe it or not, the Majurity Trust celebrates our 5th anniversary. 5 years. It's been quite a journey. It's been a really, really exciting time for us. Over the course of these 5 years, we have worked hard to use research to help us surface needs, to surface the gaps, and of things that are unseen. We work with grantee partners, we work with donors, we work with partners like yourself to be able to make things happen and to bring about game-changing ideas for the sector that will make a lasting impact on Singapore. Often our research and conversations bring us to places we've never been before. Issues we never knew was an issue until we go down and realize, wow. And when we chat with our grantee partners, the things they tell us are things that, you know what? I've never saw it that way. Those are the unseen needs. And it's amazing when we start working with our grantee partners and we work with our donors, when we work with the partners on the ground, we start seeing things we've never seen before. It's truly about seeing the unseen. together with you, we can take on unseen needs. Over the last 5 years, we've built up a portfolio of about 8 funds with very clear focus in each area, from dementia to migrant workers to youth mental health. In each of the areas, we have the privilege of working with grantee partners that are doing some awesome, awesome work. And together with our donors, we make available the resource. Just in 2021 alone, we've managed to raise 6.8 million from the generosity of 73 donors. And many of them are here with us today. Would you please give them a big round of applause? Without our donors, we can't do a single thing. With the resources, we have been able in 2021 to support 84 charities and grown-up groups and serving almost 100,000 beneficiaries. In your bag, in your goodie bag, or in your goodie bag, a tote bag, not really a goodie bag. In your tote bag is our latest 2021 social impact report. We used to publish them in the booklet, but as time goes by, it becomes thicker and we really want to be more environmentally friendly. So what we have done is to put in your bag a summary. So do scan the QR code to read all the stories and all the impact. But it's really a summary of what we have done over the 2021. And every year at the Majurity Conversation, we will then release our next year's report. It's our way of being accountable. It's our way of reporting to our donors, our partners, even our grantee partners to say, you know what, these are the work that we've been doing, and together with you, we have the ability to do that. Optimizing every philanthropic dollar is important to us at Majurity Trust. We want to ensure that every dollar given to us adds to the overall ecosystem, to the charity and the people they want to support. We want to ensure that funds are optimized and not being taken away from the present. We want to grow the giving pie in Singapore and not to take away from it. We want to be able to multiply and see donations multiply in multiples so that every dollar given to the sector is multiplied many folds. And we want to be able to share the burden across multiple donors. More than just one philanthropist. It's about building an ecosystem, a collective of donors coming together and say, you know what? On our own, we can do so little, but together we can do so much more. Because what we want to do is to ensure that our donors' giving go further. In your tote bag as well, we are launching something called the Giving Kit. You can open it up, you can take a look, and it looks something like this. These are the questions that we've been asking ourselves at the Majurity Trust since day one. They are the questions that guide our work into helping our donors go further with their giving. These are the questions we hope every donor, every stakeholders, every partners will ask so that we can optimize every dollar. There are QR codes there, so I encourage you to actually go online and share with people. But really, it's about having the ability to ensure that all our resources collectively go further in our mission of building thriving communities for all in Singapore. As an opening, I don't want to take up too long, but I do want to end with a very short story. I promise it'll be a short story, okay? It's an autobiography in 5 short chapters. I know my staff is telling me, hey, you're running over, but just 5 very short chapters. All right, here we go. Chapter 1. I walk down the street. There is a deep hole in the sidewalk. I fall in. I am helpless. It isn't my fault. It takes me forever to find a way out. See, it's very short. Chapter 2. I walk down the same street. There is a deep hole in the sidewalk. I pretend I don't see it. I fall in again. I can't believe I'm in the same place, but it isn't my fault. It still takes a long time to get up. Chapter 3. I walk down the same street. There is a deep hole in the sidewalk. I see it is there. I still fall in. It is a habit. My eyes are open. I know where I am. It is my fault. I get out immediately. Chapter 4. I walk down the same street. There is a deep hole in the sidewalk. I walk around it. Chapter 5. I walk down another street. In our lives and in our minds and in the work that we do, there are really only 3 kinds of people in this world. There are people who make things happen. There are people who wait for things to happen. And there are people who go around wondering what's happening. There's only 3 kinds of people. But in life, there's only 2 options. I keep telling my children, life is not complicated, life is simple. There's only 2 options in life. It's whether you care or you don't care. To wake up at 9 a.m. to come for a conference, I know you care. For those audiences looking on YouTube, I know you care. How can we encourage people to care more? because we all only have one life. So the challenge I have with the autobiography is that I feel that the book is insufficient. So publicly, I'm going to plagiarize the book a little bit. No, I'm not going to plagiarize. I'm going to add one chapter because I think it needs a chapter 6. Because when we look at the country we're working with, it needs a chapter 6, something that you and I together we can do. And that is, we can cover the whole. Not walking down another street, not walking around it, not satisfied that people constantly go into the hole. Because seeing the unseen is about meeting the needs that's not there. Today, we're excited to launch the first of its kind fund called the Lamsoon New Horizon. I remember having a conversation with Shannon almost over a year plus ago in your office, and we were dreaming of this idea of how can we create a funding that's unique, that's special, that's not just money given to the ground, but given them with mentoring, given them with capacity building, so that they can succeed with new innovative ideas. And today, we're seeing that coming to fruition. Our morning today is about charting new horizons. I just want to thank you on behalf of the Majurity Trust for all of us, our board members, to say that, without you, we can't do this. So I want to say a big thank you, and would you please give yourself a big round of applause. So to get us going about charting new horizons today, I want to get the conversations now started. This event is about bringing the best of minds together, and we right now want to welcome our first speaker, who is Bill Cromie. Bill is streaming in all the way from New York City. He's a social impact tech entrepreneur and CEO of Help Kitchen. Bill, over to you.
Hello. Thank you, Martin. Thank you so much for the introduction. Your enthusiasm is absolutely incredible. You're a tough act to follow. I'm so honored and excited to be here, to be invited to speak with you all, to be a part of this conversation. It's such an important one to have. As Martin mentioned, the problems that we face today are so dynamic, and the challenges are so great. We need to use all the tools we have in our toolkit. And Martin, so much of what you said resonated with me. The idea of seeing the unseen, of doing the work together, an ecosystem, and working alongside the community themselves. I'm excited to continue and to add on to your conversation. So without further ado, a little bit about what I've learned about innovation. So I'm going to give you a little bit of context first. In the United States, there's about 38 million food insecure people. It's about 11% of the entire country. Of that, there's 10 million kids that are food insecure that live in a household with a person that's employed. In a country where the per capita GDP is $63,000, that's about $86,000 in Singapore dollars, that's not a good look. One of our closest GDP per capita neighbors, Norway, has less than 1% of its population that faces food insecurity. And the question is is there enough food? Right? Is it like a problem of supply? There's plenty of food, right? 40% of all the food in the United States is wasted. It's about $200 billion worth of food. So what happens when you don't have enough food to eat? What happens when you don't know when your next meal is going to come from? Well, people make trade-offs. They maybe don't pay for their heating. Maybe they don't get the health care that they need. Maybe they don't pay for their housing. And when they do buy food, it's often fast food and cheap sugar. This results in all sorts of outcomes. Multidimensional, and they follow people around for the rest of their lives. High rates of obesity, plummeting life expectancy, less likely to graduate, poor job outcomes. And this is just one problem, one sort of complicated, wicked mess of a problem. There are many, many, many problems like that. In the United States and all over the world. This problem of food justice, it's my problem. And I'm going to get back to it for a little bit, but first I'm going to talk a little bit about me, and then we're going to talk about how I'm trying to address food insecurity. So Right out of college, I got started as the CTO of a venture-backed startup. I realized that I was comforting the comfortable and making wealthy people wealthier. And so I decided I want to take my skills and what I knew about how to build tech, and I founded a social innovation accelerator at the Robin Hood Foundation. Just in January, I left, and I'm now the CEO of Help Kitchen, and we're on a mission to end food insecurity in America and hopefully put ourselves out of business. So how are we going to do that? Well, from the outset, Help Kitchen followed the same sort of process that we developed at the labs. It's a place where we can bring technologists and communities together to explore and build new solutions to these wicked sorts of problems. Over the years since we got started in 2014, we've launched a bunch of different organizations out of our programs that have gone to make a real difference in the problems they've set out to solve. We supported teams that serve millions of people and have generated hundreds of millions of dollars of impact. But it's important to realize, to Martin's point earlier, that it really takes a village, right? The labs is a part of a large, thriving ecosystem that is essential. You're going to hear from Shannon, who's a good friend of mine, runs Fast Forward. Teams go on to get support from a bunch of different teams, and all of us working together to support these folks going out and solving real problems. The same way that the Silicon Valley ecosystem fostered an explosion of new companies and new ideas and new products, it takes a bunch of different organizations all supporting this innovation to make it happen. At the labs, we do one specific part. We're at the very, very beginning, where people get together and go from nothing and try to turn it into something. And that's what we're going to talk about here. I think about innovation as a process. It's not necessarily an outcome. Everything that you see, all of the companies, all the organizations, all of the products, at one point they were shiny, new, and innovative, right? What I think is more interesting and more important is how you can consistently and predictably create new, impactful organizations and new ideas to address the different dynamic challenges we face today. So what follows here is Blue Ridge Labs' way of doing things. There are a bunch of different models of how you do it. There's a bunch of different ways. This is sort of the condensed and trying to condense it down to its core ideas of what worked for us. So what are they? People. Well, of course, you always need people. All problems are people problems. All solutions are made by people. But I think it's important to talk about specifically what I mean by people. I didn't say team, right? No matter what you're doing, you need a team of motivated, excellent people to get stuff done, right? You could be making paper clips. You could be anything needs excellent, motivated people. That's not unique. What I think you need in order to create novel solutions to hard problems is really everyone. You need the community that's affected. You need the people that have been studying it. You need the government that is working on it. You need people who are experts, people who have lived experience of the challenge themselves, people who understand the problem from many, many different perspectives, and ideally as close to the problem as possible. This is a comic strip that I love. Imagine if I were our teenage girl target audience, I would love our new product. What, leave this room? You mean go out and talk to people? Go out and listen to what they need? To design sustainable solutions is to understand who you're designing for. And to do that, you really need to involve people and their communities in the creation of tools and services that are relevant to their lives. So when you get all the people together, what do you have to do? I think you got to create safety. I struggled with this. I was trying to figure out, I initially started with the word support, but I wanted to be more specific. Support's like, helping you, like, give some money, give some space. And I think safety is a very specific idea. And that idea is that people feel like they can take a risk. That there's a net to catch you. That falling into that failing, that making a mistake, that doing something wrong, that trying something that doesn't work, that's not failure. In many ways, trying something that doesn't work is success. Failure is not what failure is failure is not trying at all. Because when you fail, when you make a mistake, you learn more about the problem space. You understand more about what might work and what doesn't. The only way to find out if you're wrong is to make something real. It's to try something risky. You can see this person out on a high wire over a waterfall, right? I don't know if you can see, it's this little tiny thing. They've got this little protective wire that's connected to them in the back. If your goal is getting across the chasm, you have to make it safe to make that first step. And then finally, I think you've got to launch. And launch often and a lot. The only way to find out if you're right or wrong is to make something real and to put it into people's hands. This is one of my favorite quotes from Steve Jobs. And the reason why is no product, no service, no idea ever really survives first contact with a customer intact. That's why there's always a version 2. There's always the improvements. When we first joined Robinhood, our boss at the time, Michael Weinstein, told us that if all of our products succeeded, he was going to fire us because we weren't taking big enough risks. You've got to ship things. You've got to put them out into the world because they're not going to work. And that not working helps you discover exactly what might work. And then you've got to have ideas. Wait, no. You don't need ideas. An idea is simply the expression of how a particular team believes a problem can be solved right now. The idea isn't the crux of it. Because if you've got excellent people, you give them safety to try new things, and they go out and do it and put it into the world, they will get to better ideas. So, how did this play out? Help Kitchen was started at the height of the pandemic. We went and talked to people, right? We talked to people who were at food pantries. We talked to people who ran food pantries. The charitable food system was overwhelmed and hunger was growing. We realized that there was a huge number of folks for whom traditional soup kitchens and food pantries didn't work. Close to 2/3 of the food insecure population don't use pantries. It's challenging because of time constraints. It wasn't convenient. Hard for people to use, the prep time of food, etc. And the first idea came about because we talked to someone who said, I used to work at a restaurant. I used to feed people, and now I'm waiting in line for food. So we came up with this idea. Maybe we could just buy food for people at restaurants. Our funder, Jeff and Erica Lawson, asked us, well, what's the worst that could happen? We feed a bunch of people. Go for it. Try it out. See if it works. A week later, we were serving people hot meals from restaurants in San Francisco using a text message platform we put together with the sort of digital equivalent of glue and string. Super simple. Folks text in. We connect them with a local nearby restaurant. They go to pick up their meals. And we pay the restaurants, putting money into the local economy. It's super simple, but that's also kind of what makes it powerful. It's scalable, low overhead, provides high quality nutrition to food insecure folks for whom the traditional charitable food system, pantries and like, might not be a good fit. To date, we've served 1.7 million meals. And in San Francisco alone, in 2021, we fed at least one meal to approximately 15% of the food insecure population in San Francisco, around 30,000 people. And it's a virtuous cycle. We pump dollars into the local economy, supporting local businesses, keeping those restaurants alive, who in turn hire folks. A study that came out of the city of Aurora, hopefully going to be published soon. Every dollar that we put into the restaurants recirculates 7 times in the local economy. That process, going out and talking to the people, having the safety to try things that might not work, putting it out in the world, doing that over and over again, led us to an insight. And that insight's the beginning of that cycle all over again. That it's possible to utilize the for-profit food industry to provide high-quality, nutritious, high-dignity food to food insecure people at scale. And it turns out at a price point that's competitive with traditional providers. Is this the best solution? Will it continue to work in a post-pandemic world? I don't know. I don't think so. I think it will. I just don't know. So what do? I fall in love with the problem, not my particular solution. The particular solution tells you something important about the problem, but it certainly doesn't solve it. Not quite yet. So, Help Kitchen is a thing that works, but it could be better. And maybe once the pandemic sort of winds down and restaurants figure out a different model, it might not work anymore. So what do? Go talk to people. Build things that I believe will work. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. Put them out into the world and find out. And over again, every time, hopefully the world gets a bit better. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill, for that very insightful sharing. All right, ladies and gentlemen, our next keynote speaker from Hong Kong is a pioneer in the venture, philanthropy, and social impact space. Joining us virtually, ladies and gentlemen, is Francis Ngai, CEO and co-founder of Social Ventures Hong Kong. Oh, I already hear that someone knows him, right? You all know him, is it? Yes, very popular. Joining him also is Le Hui Liang, head of Purpose Capital at Social Ventures Hong Kong. Ladies and gentlemen, Francis and Le Hui.
Hi, everyone. Hi, I'm Francis, and my colleague, Le Hui, our head of Purpose Capital from Social Ventures Hong Kong. It's a great honor to be invited. So thanks, Majurity Trust, for inviting us to share with you today. So we founded since 2007. So I think this is a picture of Hong Kong, a very beautiful Hong Kong. So I think it's also why we are setting up this organization, trying to make a better place, a better city for us. One slide, please. So we're an impact purpose organizations, we call ourselves. So we try to pioneering impact ventures, cultivating movement of good, and orchestrating impact capital in the city since 2007. So at the very early stages, we set up a lot of social enterprises, so around several tens of them. But I think by just inventing new impact ventures or social enterprises, we think it's not enough to influence the wider city. So later on, we being advisory role and also incubating a lot of different platforms in different sectors, including business, philanthropists, and also nonprofit, and even public sectors. So I think that made us have a better view about how to change the root cause of the root causes. So along the journey, I think we also kickstart a new movement in the business sector called Business 2.0, try to bring them having more purpose-driven. Profit and purpose should be going along the way. So these few years, we think that overall in the cities, I think even nonprofit or social enterprise is not doing a very good job in influencing in the public image. So we also set up an impact storytelling. So right now we develop ourselves to have a more multi-skills and trying to get different vehicles and skill sets to try to make impact a mainstream thing. So today, we'd like to just a couple of points or learnings that we have in the journey in the last 15 years on purpose capital. Overall, I would say it's riding on the main theme of making impact horizons beyond monetary capital. So we see that just investing with the direct impact with X dollar of amount, I think, of course, is already great. But I think how can we leverage our different skills, different perspectives, or different sectors to make it a bigger thing? So we always call it the exponential factor. I think it's very important to us as well. So first one, I would say, is the impact ventures as the catalyst for social movement. So here I would like to introduce a couple of cases that we have done. So by using that to illustrate what I'm going to talk about with the catalyst way. Green Monday, if you heard about this global movement right now, is starting with our organizations 10 years ago. So Green Monday is advocating people one day meat-free. Actually, no matter it's Monday or Tuesday, Wednesday, it doesn't really matter. But I think all the more, I think we call it a baby step to go green. So not a lot of people are aware that actually plant-based diet, by just changing your options at the dining table, make a huge difference in climate change, make a huge difference in food crisis, and make a huge difference to your own health as well. So I think Green Monday is a good reminder at first, starting off as an advocacy and movement. But later on, we think that just advocating is not enough. Gradually, apart from Hong Kong, we go across the border, a lot of different countries joining the movement, schools, universities, and F&B sectors. But later on, we think that how to promote the plant-based options is very important. So we set up Green Common, which is now having a store at Singapore as well. So we also work with a lot of F&B. We invented our own fake meat, somewhat like the Beyond Meat. We are the distributors in Hong Kong, but at the same time, we invent our own fake pork, which is called Omni Pork in Hong Kong. In Singapore, we call it Omni Meat. So we're trying to replace one of the big consumptions of pork in Chinese community in Asia as well. So right now, even with Omni Pork, we work with a lot of mainstream F&B, including McDonald's Hong Kong. They have one Omni Luncheon Meat Breakfast. It's serving, I think, since last year. It's a hot product right now. But just choosing these options, consumers could also participate in the climate change movement and working together. So right now, with Green Monday, Green Common being our value chain, Omni Pork being our product, holistically, we also get engaged with the F&B sectors, a lot of different advocacy around the world. We make it a movement. So what I'm trying to illustrate is, at first, it's just a social enterprises, it's an impact ventures. But later on, because we don't just see that the direct impact, how to grow ourselves to be a bigger thing is the only purpose. So we don't just serve the impact investors to be our only goal. But we see that how to kickstart a bigger movement, making everybody on board is also very important. So right now, I would say, apart from Omni Pork or Green Monday, there are a lot of different plant-based already arrived Hong Kong and Asia. Try to promote this concept together. We always participate in a lot of the discussions in the climate change or the plant-based diet. I think my co-founder David now become one of the global advocate on plant-based diet. I think it's a bigger thing than the monetary or the social enterprise impact that we can create. And on the right-hand side, on the right-hand top corner, I think it's a Run Our City. So at the same time, we promote running. I myself is a vegetarian and also a runner. So you see a lot of self-interest from myself. But I think by just promoting more people to run, we think the city will be healthier. So we organize large scale of event like a streetathon. While we can still organize event, it's almost more than 20,000 people every year will participate in that. So we are quite famous in making it fun. So it's not just about the PB, the personal best. I think it's about how to engage a running event in a fun way. So many people are in costumes running on that. But at the same time, we are training almost 20,000 youth to go on long distance run. 8 lessons, almost everyone can do 10 kilometers. So to the youngsters, secondary school student is a big thing for them. So although last year and this year we cannot organize a physical event in Hong Kong, but I think we also organize a virtual run. It's called Run to the Moon. So we aggregate the whole city. Last year, Taiwan also joining us. So maybe way forward we can get Singapore doing this together to aggregate a distance enough for us to go to the moon. So last year we got 2 moons actually for this distance. So I think how to promote a movement is bigger thing than the ventures itself. Also right now, by just waiting someone to quit their job to set up social enterprise, I think it's definitely not enough. So, but in Hong Kong or in Asia, a lot of younger generations would like to go for a startup route. So right now we have a topic called Impact Valley. So with our Social Innovation Award that we organize more than 13 years, we try to get engaged with a lot of the startups, try to get startup go social. So successfully in the last few years, there are a lot more startups come to our way and see that how can we help them on the impact strategy. And we are working with the investors like CVC, Alibaba Entrepreneurship Fund, and Credit Suisse, these kind of organizations helping us together to promote this theme. So right now we are seeing that if we are successful, then immediately we can get more different stakeholders to participate in social innovations. So the second thing that I want to share is impact properties as the springboard for exit of poverty. So I think by just doing the direct impact with some supporting NGOs to solve the poverty alleviation projects, globally there are quite a lot of them. But I think in Hong Kong we run a few projects trying to use the venue as an impact engagement. But the aim for it is to create exit of poverty instead of just keep on giving them fishes. So on the left-hand side, we have a project called Light B. So we have a product called Light Home, and later on we work with the government to have like the Light Housing, which is a quarter that renovated and with 45 units. And right now, actually, the New World Group, a big property conglomerate, they are renting us a piece of land. So we're going to build up a core Light Village. But right now, we are managing more than 130 apartments in Hong Kong. It's an affordable rental model. So there are some landlord rent their house to us without charging market rent. We will rent that to some single mom with young kids. But with the rebuilding the neighborhood, we get them have a better self-esteem and then finding a better job through that 3 years at most they could live there for. But right now, among that 400 families, over 1,000 people, average living time is 2 years. So it's proven that apart from just giving them a chance to have a lower rent quarter, is actually we do the empowerment quite successfully. So riding on this success, we have the second project on the right-hand corner is the Hatch, which we call it a co-working factory. 3 years ago, we set up factory again, try to do women empowerment. But at the same time, we try to promote micro-entrepreneurships, try to encourage more individuals getting their manufacturing doing in Hong Kong. On the one hand, empower the women, but at the same time, create more economics for the community as well. So that's successfully helping a lot of women finding their own self-esteem and also the new momentum. Apart from taking care of the kids, can they also go on to become an agent of change in the community? So also we have a project called Come On, which is a community clubhouse. So first place, second place, the third place is even they are living in a subdivided units, they could come out and become a clubhouse member, engage together. So with this kind of small group, small cell, actually we are quite successfully in helping them to tackle the pandemic situations in the last few months as well. So on the right-hand corner is actually we have a project called Community Making. It's trying to get the different stakeholders, non-profit, for-profit, or public sectors coming together to talk about some issues that they're trying to solve, and then making them, is called Community Making, try to get them to think about some long-term visions and work out together and get them collaborate. So one of the root cause of the root cause is living in sectors living in silo. So with these kind of things, we can, in the community level, get different stakeholders to work together. I think it's a good way for us to create exits of poverty. So the third thing I would like to introduce is the impact business, which we have spent in the last 5 or 6 years quite dedicatedly trying to get the business on board in social innovations. So we see that purpose is definitely the new profit. If we can work out that, then it is not just the traditional charity or there's some CSR effort. Shared value or marketing 3.0 is just the name. But I think overall, I think it's rethinking why there is a business. I think business should have a purpose. So we have worked out a lot of different cases with Swire Group, Hong Kong Broadband Cathay Pacific, some of the local manufacturer, some property owners as well. But last year, we also launched together with Hong Kong Management Associations for a new project called Business with Purpose. It's somewhat like the Business Roundtable in the US. We try to get engaged with a group of business corporations, try to pledge and say that they will commit on purpose and share the experience with the other peoples as well. So that will be a continuous platform. We work with this organization, which is a quite prominent business associations. So if we are successful, we definitely think that business would be the next wave of impact. So the last things that we're going to share, well, I'll pass it on to Lakhui. Thank you.
Thank you, Francis. So hi, everyone. My name is Le Hui, and I'm the head of Purpose Capital at SVHK. So today I'm going to share with you about Purpose Capital and what we think about it. So 15 years ago when we were founded, we actually had our own venture philanthropy fund. It's over $1 million US, and we're still operating it today. But over this past decade, I think what has become very clear to us is that using our own money and investing our own money can only go so far in creating impact for a lot of the very deeply rooted social issues that Hong Kong has. So from our own experience of managing this fund, we have started to reach out to a lot more stakeholders in the past few years to influence them on how they can better use their capital, not just money, but as Francis mentioned, property or their business ties or any kind of resources that they have to create more impact. So these are some of the examples that we have been working with, and we hope that through these kind of collaborations and through our influence and sharing our experience, more and more people can input their capital into more helpful and impactful ways. So for example, we've been working with the Community Chest in Hong Kong. They have about 50 years of history, and they are now running this thing called a Social Innovation Fund, which is actually something that is very a huge breakthrough for them. So what we have been doing is that we've been sharing with them, what is innovation? How do you pick innovative projects? How do you incubate this project so that they can be different from what you have been doing before? And we see that that has also have quite an impact on not just the way that they operate, but also the people working in the community chest, how they can change their mindsets as to what is impact and what they can do more. We have also been working with the Swire Trust and Cathay Pacific to streamline their CSR and CSV efforts so that they can create a more impactful strategic direction, especially because they have such a huge footprint in Hong Kong and they have also a lot of influence on the business sector. So if we can help them to find ways that they can create change through their very inherent businesses, then it will be something that's a lot more sustainable and not something that you do only when your business is doing well or when you have extra funding. We have also tried to work with other kinds of funders in order to help them to see what kind of change they can make. In 2020, we launched something called the Community Resilience Fund, which is our version of a bridge loan to social enterprises who were having cash flow problems during COVID. And this is first of its kind of a fund in Hong Kong, because usually in Hong Kong, people normally go for grants, or if not, they will get equity investments. So this kind of a bridging loan was a demonstration that actually, our market is mature enough, and also there's the need for this kind of new kind of infrastructure, so that when we finish this fund and we do it well, we can actually influence other people to say that you can also have this kind of a new kind of vehicle, or maybe Hong Kong is ready for different kinds of vehicles in order to let social enterprises grow. We have also been working with much larger funders, let's say the Hong Kong Jockey Club and also Zaksin Foundation, with some of the programs that they are running. For example, with the Jockey Club, they have a program called JC Inner Power. So instead of influencing the way that they fund, we influence the way that they think about innovation. So for this one, we're working with them with a social worker fellowship program. What we're trying to do is we're trying to create very bottom-up change in the NGO sector, so that more social workers and their organizations can start to think about social innovation. We don't intend to stop in Hong Kong, which is why we're also actively playing a much larger role in the Asian Venture Philanthropy Network starting from this year. What we see is that Hong Kong is actually quite a unique place. We are very small, but we have a wide variety of social issues that require a lot of creativity in order to solve. So where we see is that Hong Kong can be quite an interesting place for you to try out your innovations at a very small scale, test them out, and see how they can scale up, and then hopefully be able to replicate them into a lot of other cities around Asia that also face very similar social problems. So with all that we have presented, it's been quite an eventful 15 years for SVHK in building social innovation. And we're also always looking forward into the future and what more can be done in order to innovate social change for Hong Kong's social problems. So in 2020, we launched our new vision called New Urban. This was driven by a lot of a huge recognition in Hong Kong that our social problems are very deep-seated and requires not just the social sector or the government, but everybody to join in order to create change. So what we saw was that we cannot just work on today's problems. We have to start thinking about tomorrow's issues and thinking back, counting back how we can start solving them from today. So from then on, instead of doing a lot of the work by ourselves, what we have been doing is we have been putting out very bold, somewhat you could say might be a bit far-fetched visions out there. But what we hope to do is to inspire people and help them to realize that every one of us can be a change maker in our own right, as long as we recognize, what kind of resources that we have, what kind of strengths that we have, and where our passion lies in social issues. And then we can utilize all of these tools well in order to create the change that we want to see for Hong Kong. In SVHK, we really believe in partnerships, which is why, throughout all our examples before, we have been mentioning a lot of different partners we have been working with. I think we're very grateful for all of them, because without them, we wouldn't be able to run a lot of the innovation ideas just with the small amount of resources that we have. At the end of the day, I think that, I'm sure Francis will agree with me, that a lot of our problems and a lot of our solutions are very people-based. And we hope that through all the work that we do, we can really improve human life in Hong Kong. And hopefully this will be an inspiration for more people to look into urban issues. And as our world becomes even more urbanized, we can live much better lives in cities and also learn to thrive and flourish. Yep, back to you, Francis.
Thank you.
Thank you, Le Hui. Thank you, Francis. A round of applause for them, ladies and gentlemen. All right, now I'd like to invite Martin back up on stage with our third keynote speaker, where we turn our focus to the world of tech. If you have any questions, please feel free to engage with our panel via Mentimeter. For guests joining us online today, you should find more information in the comments section. And if you're on site with us here at the National Gallery, please refer to the program sheet in your tote bag for more information. Now, with rapid technological advancements in recent decades, the potential for nonprofits to solve the world's biggest problems has definitely been accelerated. Our next speaker is no stranger to tech for good. Ladies and gentlemen, joining us all the way from San Francisco is Shannon Farley, co-founder and executive director of Fast Forward. Shannon, please. Martin, take it away.
Thank you so much, Kate. As you can see, we're trying very different modes. Shannon, so good to see you.
Hi there.
Tell us how's the weather in San Francisco right now. Make us jealous.
It's a beautiful day in San Francisco. Blue skies and a light breeze.
Wonderful. Hey, for those of us who are here and we may not know too much about Fast Forward, would you give us a quick lowdown of what you guys have been doing in San Francisco?
Sure. We started Fast Forward 9 years ago because we wanted to see better tech applied to our biggest social problems. So we ripped a page out of the Silicon Valley playbook and we launched an accelerator. It's like Y Combinator or Techstars, except exclusively for tech nonprofits. It's been 9 years. We've had 70 teams go through our program, and I'm really pleased to say last year they impacted over 100 million lives.
That's amazing. I think we should give them a big round of applause. The scale is mind-boggling. And together you guys raised 357 million, is that right, on follow-up funding?
Yeah, we did. For these kinds of startups to succeed, philanthropy is an important part of the recipe. We need folks to double down on our seed investment to help these organizations grow and thrive.
Hey, we have investors here, we have donors here, we have philanthropists as well, and government agencies that's looking at innovative ways of funding. Tell us a little bit, for Fast Forward, do the donors, do the philanthropists take on equity stake in this company, or is it pure philanthropy dollar? Would you share with us the model in which you do this accelerator in Fast Forward?
Yes, the organizations that we select, which come from all over the world, have local charity status. So there's no equity to give away. We are increasingly seeing philanthropists use different giving tools, like loans out of the corpus of their foundation, or other kinds of creative funding methodologies, but it really is all philanthropy.
Nice. Now, hey, for you, when Bill was talking about how you guys were good friends, I saw your logo on Blue Ridge Labs, of which I had a chance to visit. Tell me about your journey. How has your journey been from a grantee of sort, or a member of sort of Blue Ridge Labs,
Sure.
you know, starting Fast Forward, and now you are helping them. What made you do what you do? How did you get started, and what led you to start Fast Forward?
Yeah, my background is in social justice organizing. I helped start a prison reform nonprofit in the early 2000s, and then I ran a women's fund, which was actually like an early stage tech nonprofit. We had a PayPal account and a wiki, and that's how we did all of our grant making. Yeah, it seems crazy, especially in 2005. It was bananas to think that you could get thousands of people to give about $100 each, and you could use that money to make meaningful grants to women's groups all over the world. But it worked, and it became the largest network of millennial philanthropists in the world. But it was really hard. Like, we had to learn everything from scratch. I wish there had been programs like Blue Ridge Labs and Fast Forward when we started. We were desperate for connections and context and some money to get our tech product off its ground. So that's why we started Fast Forward. I wanted to see more Khan Academies and Wikipedias, more organizations solving crises in healthcare and education and human rights, using the technology that we all have in our pockets.
I like the idea, because there's really no money too small. And sometimes when we want to seed, it's the small money that counts, and then it just adds up. And you mentioned that, sometimes we wish that there was a Blue Ridge Lab, or we wish it was Fast Forward when we first started. Now, having gone through that journey now, right? You've gone through both at the grantee partner level all the way to now you are an incubator, you are, you aggregate investors for them. What are your biggest lessons that you have learned in your own journey? And maybe now at Fast Forward, what are the things that you are seeing that perhaps is slightly different from when you first started, and how excited you are about it?
Sure. I love this question because it opens up the door to all kinds of founders we historically haven't seen previously. One of the key lessons for Fast Forward is that people who have lived experience with the problem should have everything they need to solve the problem. Because as Bill was saying earlier, people who lived and breathed hunger or poverty in various levels, they are not as committed to the way they solve the problem than just solving the problem. And that turns out to be a great trait for a tech entrepreneur. You can't be too precious about the thing that you built, because if it's not working, you have to go in a different direction. So it turns out that those who are proximate to the problems should be empowered to solve them. And we just keep confirming that over and over again at Fast Forward. For the second piece, I feel like we need more philanthropists in this space. People who understand that philanthropy is the ultimate risk capital. The money's been spent, it's not coming back. So why not invest in some of the wicked, hairy, sticky problems we all face? My co-founder, Kevin Barenblatt, was an entrepreneur in residence at a VC in Silicon Valley. And he kept seeing all these really smart founders who built products that were looking for problems. And he got really frustrated because we have a lot of problems that could use better products. So if we could unlock philanthropic capital in a way that tapped into its greatest asset, which is that the money's spent, it's not coming back, we could have real change that is driven by tech.
In the US, we see a lot of funds like this or accelerator like this. I think we are slowly growing in Singapore. We're seeing a lot more social enterprise accelerators. What we are doing with the Lamso New Horizon Fund is to build a charity non-profit accelerator with philanthropists willing to take and mitigate risk to a certain extent. What do you think? What do you think in the ecosystem in the US that makes it so compelling for philanthropists to say, hey, you know what, I can de-risk this, I can invest? Is there a secret sauce in the US that, you know what, everybody fail all the time now? Is there like a secret sauce in the US that you think it's something that we can learn here in Singapore, that we can say that, hey, you know what, if you build an economy, or if you build an ecosystem like this, if these are the stories you tell, the philanthropists or the donors or even government agencies, for example, may be willing to take that kind of risk. What do you think might be those secret sauce for you?
Yeah, I think storytelling can be a powerful agent for movements. So one of the things we invested in very early in Fast Forward was making sure we were telling the stories of our founders everywhere that we could. We got a channel in Forbes and a channel in TechCrunch. We got them on major media platforms. Because if you could make the kinds of founders who start a tech nonprofit highly visible, people would start funding more tech nonprofits. Also, other people would start tech nonprofits. They would launch them because they could see themselves in the model of another person. So I feel like you can't underinvest in storytelling. For better or for worse, one of the reasons I feel like there's more philanthropy in the US is because we have almost no social safety net. So you need the social sector to hold up people. And as a result of that scarcity, people get pretty creative. We are increasingly seeing more tech nonprofits in Asia, in Europe, and throughout Africa. And so I am interested to see in places that have more safety net than we traditionally do here in the States, what they're going to create and what they'll build.
I like that, and I think it's exciting if we could really bring all these different pieces together. What you guys are doing in the US, what Francis is doing in Hong Kong, and I know what AVPN has been trying to do, which is pull all these folks together, together with folks like APC, for example. There's this ecosystem that's being built. There's like-minded folks, and I think there's so much experience and so much lessons that we can all share with each other, like how we're actually learning with you now. Hey, I do want to ask you to maybe just give one advice. I mean, we have our grantee partners here who are starting their journey, who are founders. We have people who are working in government currently and say, hey, can I take the leap of faith? Can I have this idea, I have this problem I want to solve. And so what would one advice be from you to a founder who wants to get this journey going, just like what you have done together at Blue Ridge Labs?
Sure. So for the budding tech entrepreneurs in the room, we tell people just to launch. We've had folks that started their tech nonprofits with money out of their student loans, or they put the first AWS credits on their credit card. It actually doesn't cost that much money to start a tech nonprofit these days. So if you have an idea that is burning a hole in your pocket and you believe you can solve it, you should just start. The money will come. It turns out money isn't actually the biggest problem for most of our founders. It's identifying who to serve and how best to serve them. So the money will come. For philanthropists, I think it's almost the same advice, that we see profound efficiency and impact at scale. So when you invest in tech, it's a highly leveraged investment. And if you invest in a couple of tech nonprofits, you can spread the risk across the portfolio. And when you do that, you can impact not just a few lives, but millions and millions and millions of lives at a lower cost per unit of impact.
That scalability is amazing when it comes to technology. And I think about what Bill was talking about earlier, about falling in love with the problem. I think about what Francis was talking about in the need to create impact storytelling. And I love how all three of you bring things together. And you know what? Since everything is tying together, we should bring every one of you together. So, hey, can we have Bill and Francis? I know you guys are still online. Why don't we bring all three of you? Ladies and gentlemen, why don't you give them a big round of applause? It's just wonderful to be able to do this. Francis, you were talking, I mean, I just, when we think about the conversation we just had, how powerful storytelling is, and I think about Bill's presentation earlier. Maybe Francis, I very quickly, I want to go to you. In Hong Kong, when you work with your philanthropists, and when you work with your donors, how much of the impact storytelling part do you actually invest in? I know you have a whole team for that. You almost have a whole social enterprise for that. What goes into it, and how much resources do you actually build into that? Oops. The beauty about technology, Francis, is that sometimes we have mute and unmute buttons. So we're going to give that going while we sort out Bill's Francis' sound. Okay, we'll give it a bit more time. Nope, we still can't hear you. I'm looking at the guys. No, still don't have. We will let the guys very quickly sort out the tech side of things. Maybe I'll jump very quickly now to Bill first. Bill, can we hear you?
Yes, I think so. Hopefully.
Can you please pass your mic to Francis?
I'll do my best. It's going to be a heck of a toss, though.
That would be really nice. Hey, we were talking about storytelling. You have plenty of stories. So in sharing and founders coming together and actually pitching to philanthropists and donors, what are your advice for them if they are starting their journey? How do you think they should pitch? What should they tell? Sometimes, you know, we talk about 2-minute pitches, but it ends up being 20 minutes, just like my opening that I ran so much over time. So what would your advice be to young founders who are doing, what would the storytelling be like for them?
The thing that happens that I've seen so often is folks get so tied up in the why, in the how, because they're in the thick of it. They're doing it. They're dealing with the nuts and bolts and the lines on the spreadsheet and the lines of code, and the how is the way it works and it's what it does, but the why is what changes lives. It's what gets people on your team. It's what changes the world, because the why is the reason that entrepreneur is doing it in the first place. And so it often is personal and it's deep. And so it can be difficult sometimes to tell those stories. But I think that's the part that is the most important. More tactical advice is when you ask for money, you get advice. And when you ask for advice, you get money. So
that is really good advice. Bill, can I have some advice from you, please?
I mean, happy to share it, but like, all you should take, you know. No, the best entrepreneurs are the ones who are like know which advice to pay attention to and which not to, and usually they don't.
Yes, but I can tell, judging by the reaction that we have in this room, that advice you give was a very, very good one. Hey, Francis, I think we have you back online. Let's try that.
I hope you can hear me now.
Yes, we can. Yes, we can. We were talking about just how when we pitch to funders and donors, I was particularly interested in how the impact storytelling side that you are investing in Hong Kong. and how in what shape and form is that having together? And let me give you a very quick context, because in our space in Singapore, often when we want to increase the capacity of organizations, we sometimes hire fundraising managers as one of our first stops. And we get that in a lot of our requests. But sometimes when we have fundraising managers, we don't have a compelling story to tell. We're like putting the cart before the horse. So one of the conversations we are having with a lot of charities on the ground now is more than just hiring a fundraising manager. It's really getting your story told, your story being compelling and just a tightening of what your pitch is. The fundraising manager will need the tools to go out. How are we creating the tools? And I like what Bill said, it's really personal. So can you share with us in Hong Kong what you are doing in the impact storytelling space?
Yeah, definitely. I think that the space need more marketing people coming in instead of just a fund manager and things. But I have to say that I've always told my colleagues that the Majurity Trust has been doing a great demonstrations. Your work, your marketing is so great. So I think, but because we think that's very important, apart from the monetary impact, direct impact that we created, how can we make it an advocacy, a movement, or even a prophecy? So if you're marketing in a better way, you are in a better way to collaborate more to different sectors. For example, the business sectors, they're quite willing and eager to work with us. But I think the first thing we need to do is get ourselves to be prepared. And in a way that how can we market to different channels, different people? I see that a lot of nonprofit or foundations, they have been so shy, they have been too humble in what the work that they have done. And then after doing that, they say, hey, it's full stop. But I think they didn't try to make the marketing that they have different ways in talking to different people. And we see that all these foundations or SPOs, after they've done reshuffle their marketing, there is a higher chance for them to collaborate with different people or different source of capital. So I think in a way that it's totally big exponential factor if we can create the impact media or impact storytelling in a better way. So we even set up our own impact media team right now. So we got some media and marketing professionals helping to equip, to build capacity for our SPOs as well.
I like that, and I hear there's funding available at Fast Forward. So you guys may want to... Shannon, I want to bring you in here. When we talk about accelerators, especially what you are doing in San Francisco, it's more than just the resource. You bring them together, you have a boot camp and so on. What are some of the capacity building you do for them? At the Lamson New Horizon, what we have been trying to do is to make it more than just money. So we have our mentors here with us to make sure that they get the ball rolling. We build capacity building programs and development master classes and so on. What do you guys do at Fast Forward to help the founders really be ready for scale?
Yeah, we're with you. We think that founders need primarily three things. They need access to networks, they need access to capital, and they need access to other founders that have similar lived experience. The journey of being a founder is particularly lonely, and it can be really hard when you're working in the social impact space. So community amongst founders is one of the most important things. And often from that community, more funding, more connections follow. So we spend a lot of time on that. But like Francis and Bill, we spend a ton of time on storytelling. We really believe that people give to people. So you have to center your organization's story in your personal story. It's one of the reasons it's so important to have lived experience with the problem, but also to be really close to your customers and see yourself in your customers. Only then can you tell an authentic story that works. So we spend a ton of time on that. And then we teach tips and tricks to bringing in the money. So how to set yourself up for success, how to right size your ask, how to tell an impact story that is grounded in product, which sometimes can be hard. Not all philanthropists are excited about technology, but everyone I think is excited about teaching children to read or feeding hungry families or helping folks access human rights in the country in which they live.
And one of the key things in terms of any accelerator, the tips and tricks are so important. But it's one thing that Bill was talking about, which is actually providing safety. And I thought that was a really good point. I want to go to the Mentimeter very soon for some of the questions that the audiences are asking. But Shannon, I want to go to you in terms of how does Fast Forward build the idea and the concept of safety within your accelerator program?
We spend a lot of time on it. We meet now virtually every week for 3 hours, 3 days a week. And we spend a ton of time building community with private circles. We bring in founders who've run scaled tech nonprofits to talk about how they got there. We spend a lot of energy creating authentic exchanges because we feel like that's where folks learn the most. And then I protect the founders ferociously, like they're my own kids. So if we find a funder or an investor that is not behaving in a way that I like, we may not recommend them going forward. So there's a lot of our role as early investors in accelerators and incubators is to position our founders for success. And I take that really seriously.
And it's also the curation of the kind of funders and philanthropists that actually are like-minded in heart and in spirit, because that's the way to actually build a culture, don't you think?
Absolutely. And actually, Fast Forward wrote a book on how to start and scale a tech nonprofit. It's free and available to everyone. We encourage you to check it out. All of our tips and tricks are open source now.
Awesome. We like that. Bill, I thought I'd very quickly ask you to expand on the topic of safety, because risk is always there when we talk about startups, and some will fail. But how do we fail forward? I think that's one book that many people read. But in your mind, when you talked about safety, would you expand on that a little bit? How do we, as an infrastructure, as an ecosystem, as funders, as government, how do we create safety so that people can fail safely and learn from it?
I think it really goes back to what Shannon was talking about, how people fund people, and that organizations are made up of humans, and that an entrepreneur is a person, and a person doesn't fail, right? Person learns. People may make mistakes, or they may have ideas that perhaps might not work. But if you support the person and if you stand by the person, failures become strengths, they become growth, they become learning. And so it's about having a belief in the people. And so I think that's part of it. Yeah, I think Shannon said it exactly right. That it's about the people, and that creating a place for people to thrive enables them to come up with the ideas and the products and the things that make a difference.
That is so true, right? At the end of the day, a large part of any successful startup lies with the founder and the founding team and the people around it. When we were setting up the New Horizon Fund, I remember talking to the grant panel with our donors, and we were thinking, like, at what level do we arrange our order of priority, what we look at. And very quickly we came to the conclusion that the quality of the founder is one of the key most determining factor whether we rate a project highly or not, and the team that the people have, because that's really the recipe of a really good startup. So I think that's awesome. Francis, we have a question on Mentimeter specifically for you. So I want to throw this very quickly to you. And for those in the audience and those live on YouTube, it's in the comment section. You can click on the link for the Mentimeter. Please ask away. Francis, at SVHK, do you face any dilemmas in how you approach your work? How do you leverage this to achieve impact? For example, I sometimes find business versus social goods. Business versus social goals, or a funder demands or demanding that take me in a very, very different direction. It's really an order of priority, right? It's like there's always this competing demands on what you do. So how do you approach that? Does the funder get all the way? Does the charity get all the way? Do government get all the way? So how do you work in this very dynamic ecosystem? How about that?
Thank you so much for the questions. It is not easy, I have to say. But I think I always telling people in Hong Kong that I think I would say globally it's the new era of impact renaissance. I see that it's a collective awakening. from different sectors that they need to rethink a new ways of working together for betterment of the world. So I would see that I enjoyed being founders of social enterprises. I like hanging around with all those founders. But I think in a way that do we just remain to be in this new and exciting, but yet rather small sectors, or we go mainstream to the business sectors or public sectors? We see that right now, maybe we have to pay more attention in change the ways that we're creating a change. So I think in different sectors we meet entrepreneur. So if we could influence the mainstream to work together, it's a better way. So in a way that how to keep our balance, I think in a way we see that maybe not the whole business sectors can work with us, but I think we spot the people. I think if Bill said falling in love with the problem, right now we are falling in love with the people. No matter they are founders of SPOs, I think we like entrepreneur. They are quite dedicatedly in impact from the business sectors. There are some public sectors people, government officials, they are quite keen in social innovations. We get them together. So in a way that if we could create a micro ecosystem of like-minded people, I would say we are a betterment in changing the mainstream well. Because remain to be small in the minority, or we influence, penetrate our thinking, philosophy into the mainstream majority sectors, I think the later one might be more important. So although it's quite difficult to balance, but I think bit by bit, we're thinking about 10 years or 20 years later of the whole world, we don't need to forget about the mainstream, the majority of the sectors.
I like the word that you use. It's like a renaissance, because we feel the momentum here in Singapore as well. That really this whole impact investing, this whole philanthropy, coming and say that, you know what, let's really use research, let's use science and analytics to guide our giving, so that donors will know more. Tell us a little bit about your experience in your growth for SVHK, because your presentation was astounding, right? The kind of projects you go into, purpose properties, for example. I mean, that's a very, I wouldn't say it's a uniquely Hong Kong problem. It exists in San Francisco. It's a huge problem in San Francisco now. It's a huge problem in New York. It's becoming I don't think it's a huge problem here in Singapore. But the reality is that how did some of these projects that you do come about? Is it a natural evolution? So one problem leads to another, and then you just keep opening up new purpose entities to a certain extent? Or are they started because you have different people that see things from different perspectives coming to you? Or is it funders to say, hey, I'm interested in funding this, and then you as an organization, you create that space? So I'm curious as to how you grew to be what you are today.
I think as to what you said earlier, I think holes are everywhere.
That's true.
But I think it comes all different, what you mentioned, recreate our own projects. We see some, they have the idea but don't know how to take it forward. We see funders or corporate would like to do something on that issues. We provide advisory and ideas. But I think all the more we see these holes. It's not just a responsibility. We treat these holes as an engagement. Hey, there is a hole. Why don't we come around and see how we can work together? So I think we are right now leveraging, I would see that totally solving a problem, making a change, making a huge change, making an impact is not just a responsibility. It's the right. Maybe it's a human right. So if we can get that right, we can get different people around. We work out our frame and impact storytelling that we can convince different people come together. That's a good way. So I think right now we don't just choose problems. They could come change, keep on evolving. But whatever problem, that will lead to the change, the ways that we are change making is more important right now.
And it's really
we call it the infrastructure innovations.
Yep, and it's really Bill's point that, you know, the innovation can change. It can pivot, it can do different things, and maybe new people will come and try to look at the problem from a different perspective. Shannon, I want to very quickly ask you, Fast Forward is a technology accelerator, and technology non-profit accelerator. How much of what you do you think we can build an accelerator that is non-technology? Do you think that is non-technology related, right? A traditional charity, for example, that doesn't use technology to scale, but requires a lot of volunteers and manpower to be able to create change. So how much of what you do at Fast Forward do you think is applicable to a non-technology setup? And if we would want to have something like that, what would your learnings and advice be to create a different kind of accelerator?
It's a great question. I think all nonprofits will be digitally transformed in the next 10 years. Like, you can't imagine starting a nonprofit that didn't use email and WhatsApp and Twitter and Facebook and other things to organize its members. So it's hard for me to imagine an organization that used no technology for efficiency. I would say the group's Fast Forward supports are product companies, but they're rarely building holistic products themselves. They're typically taking stuff off the shelf from Twilio and other product companies to match together a product for a new use case. And I think it would be great if soup kitchens were using logistics platforms to do their work. I think it would be amazing if in-person tutoring programs were leveraging Khan Academy and all of the free and cheap ed tech. So I think what we teach really could be applied to any nonprofit, because this is the way software is eating the world and nonprofits are just a little bit slow to the table.
But we will get there. And typically when a nonprofit comes in,
Yeah.
the impact is tremendous across societies all around the world. Hey, you know, when you have fun, time flies very quickly. I've just been told that we have only so much time left. Maybe in the last few minutes that we have, just maybe one advice from each of you. I know, Shannon, I've asked you this question earlier on, but I have a room of 150, and then we have almost 200, 190 over people on YouTube. Really just listening in, and I really think it's a wonderful content that we have from you today. Just in each of you, what would your advice be from your vantage point, from your country? Knowing that not everything is transferable, I recognize that, but what would you share with us to everyone listening and watching in, your advice for them in terms of charting new horizons, looking for new things, or starting in a nonprofit, in the charity space, be it technology and so on. So I'm dragging this on so that I give you a bit of time to think. So what is the one advice that you would give to everyone in this room, be it a donor, be it a philanthropist, be it a government official, or someone running an agency? What would that advice be? So, as with I'm going to start with, who should we start with? Bill. Okay, I hear Bill. So, Bill, you have been arrowed. In Singapore, we're not very good at volunteering, but we're very good at volunteering others. So, Bill, over to you. What's one advice?
That's called being voluntold.
Voluntold.
That's what that is. One advice. Things are impossible right up until the moment they're not. And what Shannon was just talking about, how like most of these companies are like built, and organizations are built out of like putting new pieces together. There are so many pieces, there's so many tools, there's so many ideas, there's so many possibilities out there. And you can just start rearranging the world to be better. And so, just start.
Just start. Rearranging the world to be better. Thank you for that. Shannon.
I'm with Bill. I think we have huge problems and we don't have time for you to wait. So just start would be first. And maybe your first order of business is to find your people. It's a lot easier to build a good thing if you surround yourself with good people. And as Francis said, those good people are everywhere. They're in government, they're in foundations, they're also in the social sector. So find those people. And I hope you'll look to us. Fast Forward has open communities. We have open source all of our content. Please come check us out. We would welcome you to our world of tech nonprofit entrepreneurs.
Thank you very much. Francis, one advice would you give to everyone here?
I was still repeating that don't miss the chance of Impact Renaissance. I think it's a once in a lifetime opportunity for us to come together. So I think pay more attention on change the ways that change is made. So I think don't just stop at the easy way. If you are a funder, many of you are maybe here, don't just write a check. Find Majurity Trust. They have so much more way for you to make the exponential ways.
We didn't
in
arrange this, by the way.
making
I just want to say that we
efficiency.
didn't arrange this at all.
I'll send you an invoice very soon. But I think pay more attention in how to make the exponential factor. Don't just stop at that. And then, like Shannon and Bill said, I think I totally influenced by Bill. I fall in love with the problem. We always forget. We're always in the upstream thinking about the money, how to raise funds. But I think we are not enjoying how to solve the problems right now. So we need to get more people around the hole. I think that's very important.
We can all cover the whole together. Hey, I'm not going to let Francis go without bringing Le Hui on the line. Is Le Hui with you? Where is she? Can she come over to your camera? The reason why I bring Le Hui was...
come on camera, 講句嘢佢叫你
Yeah.
過嚟呢度. Yes, she is just around.
Okay.
So I'll
Let's bring her on. The reason why... Hi, Le Hui. Can you hear me? Oops. Oh, did I call you at the wrong time? I am so sorry. 你食緊車仔麵係咪啊？ we can't hear you. There's a reason why I'm bringing Le Hui on. I'm going to put her on the spot. Okay. So as we're getting the tag going for Le Hui, if you hear her sharing earlier, Le Hui is a Singaporean. So Le Hui has been in Hong Kong for quite a while. You're muted, Le Hui. And I can't pass on this opportunity to bring her online just to share a little bit about what she has been doing. Can you hear us? Okay, you're still on mute. It was quite funny because when we were doing our pre-calls, I was talking to Francis and Le Hui. And as we were talking and talking, I keep looking at her, I keep hearing her. I said, you must be a Singaporean. Because everything that we were talking about was about food. So as you can tell, so Shannon and Bill, this is what we do to our own countrymen. We put them on the spot. We bring them on and more earthly time during the session. But really, I think what she's doing in Hong Kong and this, it's great. So Le Hui, I think we're having some difficulties. Would you maybe rejoin? Okay, we'll give it some time. So Bill and Shannon, this is what we do. We put them on the spot. But one of the reasons why I want to bring Le Hui on is because she has, after an internship in Hong Kong, decided to stay in Hong Kong and be working with Francis at SVF HK for, I think, the last 6 or 7 years now. And I thought her experience being both coming from a Singapore background and working in Hong Kong and seeing some of the things they're doing, I thought it'd be good. I just want to just jojo her a bit and say why she's not in Singapore. But hey, while we're waiting her to come on, Shannon, Bill, maybe just coming back very quickly to end our session with you. What can we do in Singapore that might be of help and of, sometimes when we have guest speakers, it's always unidirectional. It's what we're sharing. But sometimes we don't ask the question, what can we be of use, or how can we help what you guys are doing? Is it to open up opportunity for Fast Forward to be here, for Help Kitchen to set up shop here and stuff like that? So what are some of the things that we can help doing what you guys are doing over there?
Yeah, from Fast Forward's perspective, we would love to see more tech nonprofits come out of Asia. We really have only been a handful that came out of Singapore and Hong Kong and China, and some in other parts of South Asia. So we'd love to see more. So if you have heard of a tech nonprofit, if you are running a tech nonprofit, please reach out to us. We have a ton of resources that we can give you, and we want to help.
Very cool. And Bill? No, now it's New York. Welcome to the world of technology, folks. The only person that doesn't have a problem is the accelerator of a non-tech startup. So, Bill, come. What's one thing we can help you with?
I'd say share what you learn. You all are going to learn so much with this work that you've been doing. You've learned so much with the work you've been doing, and the new accelerator you all are building. You're going to learn so much building that accelerator. We, seeing things through this like tech perspective, there has to be things that are different and new and important about building an accelerator that's not specifically for tech. And so, what do you learn? How can we learn from you? Can we have you over and you can do this same thing and we can interrogate you over here next year?
After what I did to you, I'll probably run away, bro. Well, we would love to do that. I'm pretty sure there'll be gonna be a lot of lessons ahead of us. One of the things that we're trying to build is also to learn how to fail forward. Not everything we have done has turned out well, and we're trying to learn along the way. Le Hui, do we have you?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes. I was just telling all about you. While you were away, I was telling them your deepest, darkest secret. No. Well, I was just saying that you're
why
a
you do that
Singaporean.
to me?
No, just saying that you're a Singaporean in Hong Kong. I just really wanted to bring you on the screen because I think what you are doing there is truly inspiring. Maybe in just very quickly, would you share with us how you end up in Hong Kong and why have you stayed?
Oh, I started out in Hong Kong actually in finance. I was in investment banking, and then after a few years of investment banking, I quit, and somehow just like fate brought me to SVHK. I think what made me stay is if I could like borrow from what has everybody talking about today about falling in love. Like I really fell in love with Hong Kong.
Who is he?
This is
sorry, yeah.
such an interesting place. You have so many layers of complexity. They're the very rich people, they're the very poor people, and a lot of very different kinds of challenges that we have been facing here. But I think what really energizes me the most is like when you meet a lot of people, as like Francis shared. Like we work with a lot of businesses, we work with a lot of NGOs, and everybody is super into just wanting this place to be a better place and believing that our every little effort that each one of us puts in will lead to something better and for a better future that we all believe in. So I think it's really the energy and the spirit of the Hong Kong people that really touched me. And I really want to be part of that better future as well.
That is awesome. I just want to say, all of us here, we're very proud of what you are doing there. Keep doing it and really hope that you will come back to Singapore and bring all the lessons that you have. Maybe a round of applause for Le Hui. And bringing Francis back on.
Thanks. I'll definitely be back in Singapore.
Yes, you will. Can I just say it has been a real pleasure, Francis, Shannon, Bill. I thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. I'm so glad we can do this. Ladies and gentlemen, would you please put a big round of applause, including on YouTube, our speakers, Francis, Shannon, and Bill. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Martin. Thank you to our panelists as well. I hope everyone enjoyed that as much as I have, sitting down there in my tiny dark corner. It's quite comfortable, okay? You see how many people next to you? Only 2 people, no? Sure. All right, coming up next is a highlight for us here at Majurity's Conversations. And this has been almost a year in the making, right? We are excited to have our guest of honor for today, Minister for Community, Culture and Youth, and Second Minister for Law, to launch Singapore's first incubator fund for nonprofits in Singapore. It gives me really great pleasure now to call upon Minister Edwin Tong to address us virtually. Minister.
Mr. Danny Yong, founder and chairman of the Majurity Trust, Mr. Martin Tan, CEO of the Majurity Trust, friends and colleagues in the social sector, ladies and gentlemen, good morning to all of you. Welcome to this year's Majurity Conversations and the launch of the Lam Soon New Horizon Fund. It is heartening to see all the social impact leaders gather here today. I'm sorry that I can't be there in person as I'm traveling, but I'm sending this recording because I want to convey my thanks to all of you for your dedication to serving society. The past 2 years have been challenging. Nevertheless, the community was resilient, in no small part thanks to the many Singaporeans from all walks of life who stepped up to help those in need and build a more caring, fair, and just Singapore. For example, the Majurity Trust set up the Singapore Strong Fund in February 2020 to provide quick seed funding to students, volunteer groups, and charities responding to the community needs amidst COVID-19. This was even before the circuit breaker was implemented. It worked in close partnership with MCCY to share data and co-fund ground-up initiatives. Together, we were able to rally the community to ensure urgent needs were met. The Singapore Strong Fund raised over $637,000 and supported 180 community projects that benefited over 290,000 beneficiaries and involved over 11,000 volunteers. It has since evolved to include the Ground Up at SG funding initiative, supporting ground-up groups serving the community. Some of the groups eventually progressed to become registered non-profit organizations and are now working hand-in-hand with other charities and government agencies. Many such new non-profits are founded by young people. This is a really positive sign that the next generation wants to engage and contribute to society. Having new players in the social impact ecosystem also means having new talents, skill sets, and innovative solutions to tackle the challenges of today and tomorrow. This is increasingly important as we operate in a rapidly changing landscape. These new non-profit startups are built to be more agile, to adapt quickly to changes like speedboats in uncharted waters, while our more established charities are like large ships able to weather severe storms with their experienced crew. We need them both in our social sector so that we stand ready to respond to any future challenges. However, these non-profit startups still need to test and refine their solutions, create sustainable revenue streams, and build capabilities to grow the organization in order to remain sustainable. This is where philanthropists and donors can play their part by funding and supporting new untested ideas that could potentially benefit the whole ecosystem. Solving big problems require trying new ways of doing things and constant iteration, which means failure is possible. But every failure is a step to success. Learning what works and what does not can benefit the sector as a whole. Philanthropy helps the sector by providing a conducive environment for growth. And I'm glad to see the efforts that philanthropic organizations like the Majurity Trust have made towards building the ecosystem and investing in capacity building so that non-profit startups can continue to innovate sustainably. In that vein, I'm happy to hear that the Majurity Trust is launching the 1 million Lam Soon New Horizon Fund, made possible by the generous donation from the TL Wang Foundation. It is a first-of-its-kind incubator fund that provides seed funding and capacity building support for non-profit startups in the social sector. The fund has already approved 6 non-profits that further strengthen the support network for the community. And one of these non-profits is Impart, started by fresh graduate Joshua Tay and experienced youth worker Narasimhan. They developed a peer-driven approach to support youths facing adversity by meeting them where they are at. These peer volunteers partner professional youth workers from 14 different social service agencies to journey along with 220 youths through life's difficulties and challenges. Another example is the Tapestry Project, founded by Nicole Kay. Nicole's own lived experience led her to start an organization to provide upstream mental health solutions. Her team collaborates closely with schools, corporates, and community organizations to offer narrative therapy, where participants explore old narratives of one's life in new ways as a tool for early intervention, so as to reduce the overall burden of care downstream. It is critical for us to continue to strengthen the work of new organizations such as Impart and the Tapestry Project because they help identify and channel resources to new and emerging needs. The fund also includes a mentorship component where grant recipients are paired with established leaders from the NCSS Social Service Fellowship and the Lam Soon New Horizon Fund Grant Panel for guidance and for support. On top of that, grant recipients are also invited to take up a co-working space at the Majurity Trust's office. This allows grant recipients to easily tap onto the collective expertise and resources of others in the space, facilitate collaboration with one another, other startups and agencies, and subsequently scale up their work. Form must also follow function, and our solutions must keep evolving to meet changing needs. I hope that the launch of the Lam Soon New Horizon Fund will support our social sector to remain innovative, to better support and empower the vulnerable and disadvantaged, and I also encourage all the social impact leaders gathered here today to continue experimenting and exploring so that we can stand ready to address future challenges, not just quickly, but also flexibly. Let me express my appreciation to the Majurity Trust and the keynote and panel speakers for sharing your insights and experience at today's Majurity Conversations. With that, I'm pleased to launch the Lam Soon New Horizon Fund. I wish all of you a very fruitful time. Thank you very much.
Currently, non-profits in the startup phase struggle a lot on their own. Because they're so new, they don't have a track record. It's much harder to find donors as well as backers in that initial period.
At Impart, our main focus really is serving youths who are facing significant adversities.
The biggest question for us is if we don't go for them, who will?
At Kampung Kakis, ultimately what we're trying to do is really building a more resilient community network.
How do we tell stories that doesn't stereotype or entrench certain stereotypes about mental health? And how do we say it in a way that makes it easier for people to understand? So through Tapestry Stories, we're hoping those who are onlookers, who are supporting a loved one, can actually learn from other people's stories.
At MyRXMe, our dream is to impact every single youth in the next generation, and we hope that through this, we will grow to become an inclusive society for the migrant worker community.
With more support, we could actually help more not-for-profit organizations to try new technology or adopt new tools in their work processes. And if it works, it will help to scale their impact in the longer run.
With this fund, our goal is to build a new generation of social impact organizations and leaders who can chart new horizons in tackling complex challenges that we're seeing today and will continue to need to address in the future.
All right, thank you, Minister. And there you have it. The first batch of the Lam Soon New Horizon Fund grantee partners, Kampung Kakis, Impart, Better.sg, Migrant X Me, the Tapestry Project SG, and Happy Hearts Movement. Another round of applause for them, ladies and gentlemen. Really great work, huh? Now, our final keynote speaker will tell us what we can learn from the other side to build successful organizations. I'd now like to invite Lai Shanru, co-founder of Shopback, Asia Pacific's leading shopping and rewards platform. Shanru, please.
Morning, everyone. Really thankful to be here and trust you all have been really having good conversations since this morning. Thank you for inviting me, Jen, Charles. Today I'll be sharing a bit more about how to adopt the startup mentality in nonprofits. So sharing a few personal lessons from my journey that hopefully will help some of you in this room. So I think just first up, just introducing who I am. I'm Shan, most people just call me Shan. I started out first in studying accounting and finance in a local university. And as most normal banking students, I joined UOB. So I joined a bank, but soon enough I realized that that really wasn't where I was passionate about. And I took a leap of faith, joined Zalora, something that I totally had no idea what to do, so joined e-commerce because then I thought it was booming. I was interested in online shopping, so I was like, okay, I'm still young, why not try? So I was in Zalora for about a year before I got approached to join Shopback because quite a few of our co-founders were actually from Zalora. And back then I was like, okay, I've already taken a leap, taken a pay cut, gone to Zalora, working for someone that's not my own company, so why not, try out this Shopback thing. I believed in the vision back then in terms of what we were doing, so I was like, okay, let's do it. And 7 years in, I've never looked back. So I think out of office, I actually enjoy the outdoors quite a lot. I enjoy diving, but unfortunately haven't been able to do that a lot the last couple of years. And I'm also quite an avid online shopper, so I think I actually joined the right place. just to share a bit more about, what I usually spend on, because I think shopping is something that I'm very passionate about, and thankfully it has also been a huge mission for us here at ShopBack in terms of making shopping better for everyone. So these are just some places that I shop at. If you guys have not used ShopBack yet, maybe it's time to check it out now, but that's not the point of this sharing. So what? Oh, sure. Okay. Sorry about that. I'm from ShopBack. What we are, if you guys don't already know, we're actually in 10 markets. We really aim to make shopping more rewarding, delightful, and accessible for everyone through a multitude of products. So basically, we want to help users to save time and money. Currently, we're in 10 markets. We are homegrown. We started out in Singapore, with our latest market being South Korea. And recently, we also acquired a buy now, pay later firm called Hula, which I will share a little bit more on later too. So really, I think we've been growing pretty quickly in the past 7 years. And I think really kudos to the team that has really helped to make this possible. So I think a bit more about my background. So I think you can see here that I have done a lot of things within ShopBack. Started out in marketing, then I helped to launch a few new markets when we expanded out of Singapore. I also led business development for a bit, and then actually was part of our first offline foray when we started ShopBack Go, because we first started out more in the online scene. And then I actually did a stint also in the people team, helping to increase engagement within the company as our company was growing very quickly. And then now I'm actually in the midst of transiting to a new role in the financial services business that we're trying to build up. So I've been in Philippines, in Malaysia, and then in Singapore most of my time. So I think now I'll go to the more interesting bit about just three short lessons, hopefully, that will be meaningful to you guys. And I think as I was preparing this, because I haven't done this in a while, I think we all know that for COVID, a lot of things were stopped. I only did a few virtual sharings. So it was quite a good time of reflection for myself, really, to kind of ponder about what 3 lessons I thought would be most important to also communicate to some of you guys who might be entrepreneurs like myself, or part of a very, very young startup or growing company. Hopefully this can speak to you guys as well. And I think something interesting also was that as I tried to think of these lessons, somehow I kept on tying back to some of our ShopBack core values, which I will also share a bit more on later. So I think the first lesson for me, I think Jen also mentioned this in a bit of the speaker's write-up, was that I think one big thing was to have this can't is not an option attitude. I think not just at the start when we're starting up, but even now, 7 years in, having that attitude and being able to find similar like-minded people, find a like-minded tribe is actually really important. And I can just share a bit more. So these are just some funny pictures at the start of the journey. I think on the left, it's actually me. I'm in the middle wearing that silly ostrich hat, because we used to take red-eye flights every week to the Philippines when we were setting up. And I have a problem sleeping, so I need to have like total darkness, so I would do that. And then my co-founders at the left side taking stupid pictures, and on my right is actually my intern. And then back then we actually were very heavily dependent on interns at the start, because we are bootstrapped, we don't have a lot of resources, and having new people come in fresh out of school, they are just like taking a break before university. They would come and join us, we would train them up, and they'll fly around with some of us. So I think that was really working within the little resources that we had, and really having that, hey, I've never done this before, but let's just try our best, because can't is not an option. And really having people who have that similar mindset to go to uncharted territories together. And I think you can see it was not easy. I think in the middle, we actually used to share like a few people in the same room, because we wanted to be prudent at the start. While my friends were traveling and staying at the Shangri-Las, I was like traveling and staying in an Airbnb with like 5 people. So it was tough, and it was not easy, but very fulfilling as well. So yeah, I think it's important to actually find that kind of tribe, that like-minded group of people to work with. I think very thankfully at the start, myself, my co-founders, and the initial team, we had that mindset, that we were all similar in terms of what we wanted to do and achieve here, to really succeed as one team. I think this is one of our core values as well. So we really believe that, when we work as a team together, you succeed together, but you also fail together, and we don't point fingers at each other when things go wrong, but more of having a very collaborative mindset. And you can see that actually out of office, we are also very close. We do a lot of fun things together, which I think is actually important to build that connection. Not just come to work and say like, hey, hi, have lunch, but also to develop that closer relationship with your co-workers, with your team outside of work, to understand maybe some of their personal struggles, what really motivates them, how to unlock certain potentials. Because I think really at the start, right, when you have limited resources, you might not be able to pay a lot, and attracting the right talents who believe in what impact you're trying to make and are not just here for like to cruise and get a salary, but to really make an impact. I think that's very important, and understanding them beyond just colleagues or co-workers is very important even up till today when we're about 800 strong. So I think that brings me to this point that I'm actually particularly passionate about, which I realized that we set this common mission and set of values only like maybe about three years in to Shopback. But actually at the start, even though this was unspoken, we actually had this kind of alignment in terms of like what we really value as a team, having that can't is not an option attitude, to succeed as one, being team players, having killer team execution. This was all really kind of part of the DNA of who we hired and the ones who actually stayed on with us for a longer time. But I think as we scaled, we're recently refreshing our mission, refreshing our values, and I was thankful enough to be part of driving this project as well. And I think setting this common mission and really communicating the type of values that we uphold as a company was really, really important. So you can see here our Shopback values are a bit cheesy. We came up with one value for each Shopback letter after we had realized that we picked out certain themes that we felt were very recurring, and somehow we managed to string that together, marketing for so it's called Shopback. But really, I think beyond just what they stand for, I think we really see that those people who truly uphold the Shopback DNA really have these values, and we want to continue hiring people based on these values, rewarding people based on these values as well. And I think just setting it is just the first step, right? I think what we realize is that we have to really live it out, and how we do it is to really use it every chance we get. You can see this example here. It's in our monthly town halls where we have sections where we give kudos to the team, and you see that people will always tie certain kudos to different values to really show and appreciate people for living out these values, and also, of course, giving recognition. We also put up posters around the office. Not everyone has come back to the office, but we're actually getting all our officers ready, having these visual reminders, because I think it's very, very easy, when you get so busy, to forget these little things that are actually very important. So having those visual cues is also very key. Here you can also see one of our leaders. We actually use these values as we plan and plan our targets, our KPIs, structure our objectives and key results, and share it with both our leadership teams as well as the teams that kind of report into us. So it's really about walking the talk and not just saying hey, this is great values, but then when we actually run commercially or what, we just ignore that. So very important to have that sync too. And I think this one was something very cute. It was in one of the chats that I was actually in, a team chat, where there was one time where a merchant wanted to run a campaign really late, and one of the account managers had to actually activate the team quite late to pull something off within a few days. And someone was actually saying, what's the motto? Succeed as one. It's okay. We'll all work hard together. So it's very heartening to see when just normal team members are actually subscribing to these values as well and really using that in their daily lives. I think that's when you kind of know that something is working and that you're really attracting the kind of like-minded tribe that you're trying to build. Okay, so my second point is a bit more serious, and also somewhat linked to my first point, which is to part ways early with the wrong fits, whether it's wrong culturally or wrong performance fits, but to always keep it real, which is one of our values, and I'll share a bit more. I think one part of also building teams, I think before parting ways, of course, is to make sure that you hire A players and understand that at the start, it's tough. I mean, I faced that, me and my team faced that at the start when you're competing with big guys who have a lot of money to pay top dollar. How do you then hire those A players, and how do you raise the bar? And I think that was something that we struggled with, and that some of you guys may also face that. And I think you will definitely lose sometimes, but I think the important thing is to always be clear again on your mission or what you're really trying to do. And you'll be surprised that some people are not just all about money. And I think those are the kind of people that you also want to attract to, be part of this journey of whatever you're building. So I'll just share a bit, this short video that's quite cute to bring across a certain point about hiring A players. Okay, I don't know if it's working. Thank you. So, okay, I'll narrate because that's supposed to be sound. So basically, there are three professional soccer players playing against 100 kids. So you can see how the 3 professional soccer players are totally owning it. The kids can't even get close. They're just running around like headless chickens. And then you'll see that one of them actually manages to score a goal. Okay, sorry, I'm ruining this. I've watched this a lot of times. Yeah, so I think this just kind of helps to illustrate why hiring A players is so important. Sometimes you really only need a small group of A players rather than hiring a troop of like mediocre or poor performers, because it's really harder to manage poor performance or poor culture fits compared to a smaller group of people who really know what to do. They are motivated, they can run on their own. It's so much easier and much more impactful for the business that you're trying to build. So I think this is a concept that maybe a lot of us know, but it's hard to execute because sometimes it's like you have limited resources and you need to hire someone fast and then you might settle. But I would say don't settle, for sure. If you want to take the risk to hire someone that you might be a bit iffy about, that's fine. But to realize that if this person's not the right fit, right, to really part ways with this person early. So I think one lesson that we've learned is to really try to do more with less. You don't have to have the biggest teams, but you need to have the right kind of quality of people within your teams, because performance actually spirals up when like-minded A players actually work together. They motivate each other, and just one bad egg is really all you need to pull the performance of the team down. So I think when I first was a hiring manager, like in my earlier Philippines days, I actually came across like this rather toxic person that I hired. But back then, we were so strapped for resources and I really needed someone to join the team. So I hired this person, and within 3 months, I could see that she was not a culture fit. Performance-wise, she was okay, but she wasn't really living out the kind of values that we wanted. She used to come late to office, make certain comments that were not very helpful, not the best team player, and always wanting to claim her own credit. So even though her performance was okay, I actually made the tough decision within 3 months to actually part ways with her. And I think even though it was tough on the team, but after that, I actually found that, morale, the energy of the team actually improved. So I would say learning from experience, right, it's important to make sure that you kind of uphold the culture that you want to build within your team, and to part ways with people who don't meet that. And of course, while doing it, keep it real, have that constant feedback with them, which is actually my next point. Yeah, so it's really to have constant, timely feedback throughout. So if, let's say, there's someone who's a poor performer, for example, we may actually make use of one-on-ones. So highly recommend you guys to do one-on-ones with your team, whether it's weekly or bi-weekly cadences, to actually have these kind of private conversations where you give constructive feedback to your team members, whether it's positive or points for improvement, to keep that very open, so that if, let's say, it comes a day when you have to part ways, there won't be a rude shock on the part of that person. So I think that's the only thing we can do as managers or people who are trying to build teams, right, to make sure that there's this constant, timely feedback given, and of course that it's given in a respectful way that's well received. And of course, if, let's say, this person's a poor performer, whether it's performance-wise or culture-wise, to actually give that feedback and allow the time for improvement, because sometimes people do change. Even though based on my experience, it's a bit difficult, but still always be gracious and give them that space to change. But if you really see that it's not working out and it's really impacting the team, right, I think make the decision fast, as much as it's tough, and not let it fester. I think that's something that I've seen not just for myself, but in many other teams where toxic performers or toxic culture fits actually really erode the team. So I think I actually read this book, which I highly recommend you guys to read. Also, talking about the Netflix story. This part actually spoke to me quite a bit. So actually, after they laid off a lot of people in 2001, where they were restructuring, and they left only the top performers and culture fits, they actually realized that the work environment took a sharp turn for the better, and that there was positive energy, passion, motivation, and they felt that actually there were more results coming from such a small amount of people, but they are all like A players. So I think really learning from the success of Netflix, I think that's also something that at Shopback we are really trying to do. It's hard to execute, but we have to try. Yeah. Okay, and my third point, I think very similar to what Minister Edwin Tong was saying in terms of how to continually bring value to the customers that we serve, the partners that we serve. It's to really constantly iterate, and I think that has been what we've been doing since the very beginning. Here you can see that on the left side that we've actually gone through a lot of facelifts in terms of our website and even our business as well, the business model. So actually before I joined, my co-founders actually tried 2 different business models of like flash sales. It was nothing related to cashback. That's actually the structure of our business right now. But they went through 2 failures before they actually reached this cashback model, which then after that there was still a lot of changes, as you can see, in terms of how to play around with the user experience, the user interface, to really get the kind of customers that we were looking at. So I think constantly iterating and doing it quickly is super important. Right now you can see that our website and even our app looks completely different from before, and I think that that's something that's very important that we really hope to always do even now, to encourage our team members to own the problem, to really quickly iterate instead of waiting for slow perfection. So that's something that we always tell our team. It's like, don't wait until you have that perfect plan that you're like 80% sure it's gonna succeed. It's like when you're 60% there, just do and plan at the same time. So we move quite quickly in that sense, where personally I always feel like I don't even have enough time to plan, but I have to execute already, and you have to bring that team along with you to also execute on a not a fully perfect plan. So that might be something quite different from, say, maybe how the bigger companies or MNCs actually work. And I think that has been how we've been able to really change very fast and actually keep up with trends and really kind of outdo our competitors as well. So I think, how do we constantly iterate, or how do we guide our iteration? Because of course, if you keep on doing the wrong things, even if you do it very quickly, it doesn't really help. So I think one thing that we really do is, we believe in, is to honor our customers and to listen and respond to them. So even at the beginning, especially so, in my earlier years, we were actually going to Starbucks, doing Starbucks tests with our customers, getting them to play around the product and observing how they do it. And this is still something that we do up till today. Of course, now I'm not personally involved anymore, but we have teams that actually do that, and even commercial teams that are kind of involved in running campaigns. They do sit in for these kind of testing to understand how users interact with our product. So that's still super important, being able to understand what our customers are feeling. And also we still do customer calls to ask for feedback from certain customers. And we do on-ground activations as well to actually get up close and personal with these customers and see how they're interacting with our app. I think a very recent activation we did was at Uniqlo, and I personally also was part of that team to go and help customers out, be in the queues. So we're still very we were getting our hands dirty. People of every kind of background are just helping out for these activations to interact with customers, and you'll be surprised at what you can learn when you see a customer actually trying to use Shopback, and you're like, wow, there's so many steps for a new customer to kind of onboard and sign up. Then we go back to the product team and say hey, can we do something about it? So I think having this at the start all the way until even when you're a mid-sized, fast-growing company is still very important, to not feel like you can rest on your laurels, but to constantly iterate based on that feedback. I think not just customers, right? For Shopback, we are also serving our merchant partners. They're a very, very key stakeholder for our business. So on the merchant partner side, we constantly catch up with them. We try to really build strong relationships with them to understand what are the challenges that they face, so that our product can also evolve better to suit their needs, and really responding on their feedback. I think one example here was when I was with Shopback Go, which was our first product going to the offline industry, where it was completely new to us. Back then, we actually talked to a lot of F&B partners, try to understand their challenges, and we actually changed the business model like 4 times within 2 years based on that feedback, because what we thought would really work actually turned out that, merchants didn't really like it after a while. After we started, pushing sales to their business, they felt like it wasn't making sense, and we had to make certain tough decisions on the product side and on the commercial side to really make these changes. So I would say don't be too fixated on certain plans that you might have, but really be open to flexibly iterate and do it quickly before you even have like a perfect solution, because really a lot of times pushing something out, right, and getting feedback from live customers will really teach you so much more than, waiting for 8 months and then you roll out something that actually the market doesn't want. So I think that's something that we strongly believe in. And, something that, sometimes when certain people kind of push back, they're like, hey, it's not scalable, the kind of things you want to do, or it doesn't really make sense, how do you know it'll work? I'll also tell them that, hey, in this conversation where we're spending time to like talk about whether it will work, I can actually go and try it out and actually come back with results to show you whether it works. So why not we just try in a very hackish way, and if it does work, then we'll think about how to scale it up. So I think that's how we try to think about things. So I think that having that kind of mindset to constantly iterate has actually helped us to become a really the ultimate personal shopping app. I think we have moved beyond cashback in the last maybe 3 to 4 years, which was something really at the start we told ourselves we would never ever do. So I think never say never, but really understand what your customers and partners need, and really be willing to evolve your product accordingly. So you can see here that we started out with cashback, but then started moving much more upstream to allow to have different offerings to help customers to shop better, from discovering more personalized content, discovering new brands on our platform, to actually comparing prices, comparing products to find the best product that suits your needs at the right price, to then saving money with vouchers that you can actually buy beforehand, and then more recently this year to be able to pay flexibly, either now with return cashback or you pay later and split your payments into 3. So I think these are all milestones that I think 3 years ago we would never have thought we would actually be doing, and I think that's the mark of a company that's constantly iterating. When you look back and you're like, oh, I never expected that it would look like that today, and I think that kind of shows that you really constantly iterate. So I think just to end off, quickly summarizing, I think the 3 personal lessons that I've shared, and hopefully they have been meaningful to you guys in one way or another. The first is really to find that like-minded tribe, that believes in the impact, the mission that you want to achieve as a company, and to build values around that to support that mission and to align everyone there, to kind of instill that can't is not an option attitude. Second would be in terms of trying to hire the right people, hiring A players, but also be willing to part ways early with the wrong fits, whether it's performance or culture misfits. And then thirdly, to constantly iterate for your customers, knowing that quick iteration really beats slow perfection, and to really act on your customer and partner feedback as well to guide these iteration initiatives. And just wanted to leave you guys with this quote, which I think many of us at Shopback strongly believe in, that a lot of times it's not about the idea that you think of, because I mean in Shopback's case, we weren't the first ones who thought of cashback. It was done before in other parts of the world, but it's really about making ideas happen. So it's how you want to execute, how you out-execute others. So a lot of the markets, or even in Singapore when we entered, we were not the first players for cashback. But I think how we manage to establish dominance in each of our markets is really to have that right team with us to make sure that we execute really, really well. It's not just about having that great idea, but to have that team that can make it happen. And I think that's really how we want to continue to build our business as well, with a strong focus on execution. I think at the start, it's fine that execution outweighs a bit more of the planning, but as you go along, the planning bit has to come more into play as well, but not forgetting the execution, because that's what really helps you to stay on your feet and to constantly iterate and actually roll out stuff that's meaningful for your customers. So thank you. I hope this has been useful, and look forward to any questions later if we manage to speak personally.
Thank you, Shanru. I'm going to get you to remain on stage with me. In fact, I'm going to pull you up a chair. Actually, she's going to pull you up a chair. Please take a seat. Wow, she knows what to do with a chair. Okay, so We're going to be moving into the final segment of today, which is a panel discussion on starting a new venture and how we might imagine the future of nonprofits. At this time, ladies and gentlemen, I want to encourage you to engage with our panel members by inputting your questions on Mentimeter at any time. As usual, if you're online, it's in the comment section. If you're here, it's in the tote bag. But you already know, right? Because we say many times, right? Okay. Next, I'd like to now invite Ms. Chan Chia Lin, Vice President, National Council Social Service, to join us on stage. Round of applause, thank you. Ms. May Tan, one of our New Horizon grantee partners and co-founder Kampung Kakis, please join us on stage. As well as Mr. Martin Tan to join us for the panel. A show of encouragement, ladies and gentlemen. I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you very much. And I think the beautiful part about being on stage is that we can remove our masks, so that works really, really well. Shanru, I just want to say that as you were sharing your core values, we've started our own core values in Majurity Trust. So our first M is called Makan. That's very important to us. Really, really important to us. We are coming to really our final panel, and I'm really excited to have the ladies here with me to be able to not just respond to what Shanru has shared, but really as a non-profit sector. And I'm going to start with Chia Lin. Chia Lin wears multiple hats. She is both the chairman of HealthServe, which I think it's an incredible organization. She's a philanthropist, and she's also the vice president of NCSS. So literally, you are seeing three sectors all coming in one person. So I wanted to start with Chia Lin. Not just being the donor for the Lam Soon New Horizon Fund, but really more from the sector's point of view as well as a donor. What do you look for? What do you look for in the sector? What do you look for in a non-profits? There are many things that we want, and we're talking about creating new horizons. What risk should philanthropists or donors really consider? And sometimes when I talk about donors, I find myself juxtaposing as well as grant makers like government as well, right? We are quite risk averse when it comes to this sector. So what comes to your consideration? What do you think about as a funder, as someone who sees a sector point of view, and as someone as a donor?
First of all, thanks, Martin, for having me here this morning. I think there are three factors that I look at in thinking about the sector, or about the issues to be solved. First, I think is really the environment. It sounds cliched, but we really are facing, substantial challenges and change, whether it's demographics, whether it's digital transformation and disruption, or whether it's, economic and geopolitical challenges. So I think given these, the sort of tried and tested way of doing things, existing organizations, maybe it's not sufficient to solve the growing number of complex needs our society is going to face. So we really need to look beyond existing players. And sometimes you need to look outside the social service sector to solve social service sector problems, whether it's in terms of hiring people from outside the social service sector to come in to helm social service organizations or to work in teams within these organizations. Or it's about, looking for funders who, like the Singaporean who was working with Social Ventures Hong Kong, who come from outside the sector. He's not exactly working in the sector, but TMT founder Danny Yong is from outside the sector. So I think we need new lenses. And often, people from the corporate sector maybe act faster, act more nimbly, because it's typically more competitive in the private sector, and they respond faster to changing conditions. So that's one thing. The second, I think, factor really is about the life cycle of organizations. It's a known fact that actually innovations tend to happen more with startups. organizations that have grown and are more mature tend to stick to the tried and tested. They tend to be more conservative. They're more concerned about guarding market share. This is true whether it's in the for-profit world of a non-profit. So it is really about, where you are in the life cycle. The other thing is also that governments tend to look at things from a top-down macro perspective. But some problems and some needs take time to surface. So it is really the ground-ups, the startups with their micro perspectives that will spot the problem or the need first. So, it's about the life cycle of organizations. And the third really is a generational issue. I think the Gen Zs and the millennials see things very differently, and they see things very differently from my generation when we were at their age. Their aspirations are different. The way they demand services and the way they want services delivered is different. This is especially so with digital transformation. And our kids are very different from us. And so with that, I think particularly in the area of youth work, that's important. Gaspar Chan of SOS tells me that their text messaging system is very heavily used by youth. They don't call the hotline on the telephone. So I think it's a generational thing, and so that's from the point of view of whether it's you're catering to, a different generation of service users, and it's also from the perspective of the people that may be founders, of ground-ups or startups to meet these needs. And I'll be the first to say the likes of May and Denise will be far better at harnessing technology to solve social needs than myself. Definitely. And I think the young also have, and startups tend to be, populated by the young. There are some exceptions. There are some people with very entrepreneurial mindsets. Martin is one, Eugene is another. But generally, the young tend to be more entrepreneurial, more risk-taking, whereas the older people, of course, are more conservative. So I know, those who can't, maybe fun, and those who can do.
Or do both. Eugene and I are just young at heart. That's the real. I really like the third point, which is the generation, because yes, we do see in the startup space, in the non-profit space, a lot of younger people coming in, and I think there's a major impetus, and it's really nice seeing them taking a step to say, I think I can make this my career. I think I can give my life to this. Sometimes it's 2 years, sometimes it's 3 years, sometimes it's 5 years. And a lot of us is just trying to create the ecosystem. You are one of those young people. You are still working with MasterCard, and I know this has been a passion of yours for a while. So why don't we turn to you very quickly? How did you get Kampong Kaki started, and why do you do what you do? And just leveraging on what Xiaolin's point is, the innovation, the use of tech, and so on. So very quickly, tell us how did you get started?
Yeah, thanks so much, Martin, and thanks to the TMT team for inviting me here. And of course, thanks a lot, Charlene, for setting up this new fund, which is really important for us at Kampong Kakis. So Kampong Kakis, if for the audience here that might not know, we're actually a neighborhood buddy system. So what we do is we've set up a platform that tries to pair volunteers, so it can be anyone in the neighborhood, with a neighbor that could be in need. It could be a stay-alone senior, it could be just low-income families that are falling through the cracks. And we started during the circuit breaker period, during the pandemic. It was actually a really personal story for me because I thought about the idea when I had COVID myself in the hospital. Thankfully, I had no Wi-Fi, so I couldn't be on my emails. And I spent the time, thinking of ideas and being creative about how we could really help the seniors in the community who are most at risk of contracting COVID stay safe by not having to go out to get food on their own. And at the same time, when I returned home from the hospital, I have a stay-alone senior neighbor, and I realized my own parents were providing meals to my neighbor and helping her go to the market so that she could be safe. And that was really what crystallized the idea of Kampong Kakis for me. And I actually took the idea out to pitch to many people. One of the groups that I first reached out to was actually a Tech 65 community. It's a Slack group that was set up by the Singapore Global Network that has Singaporeans and friends of Singapore in the tech community, in that Slack group. And I just posted my idea and asked for feedback, and people gave me contacts to reach out to. You should go and speak to your RC, go and speak to your CC, and that's where I got connected to my first co-founder, Michelle. She's actually my resident community chairperson. So she brought, and she's also a medical social worker, so she brought that perspective of the needs on the ground. She knew who we needed to reach out to on the ground. And I came in with my expertise in tech. So I was a product manager in MasterCard for almost 5 years. And I went to Cornell Tech, and that's where my startup mentality and my passion for iterating on ideas came from. And we just put the two together, and that's how we started Kampong Kakis in my neighborhood. And very quickly, Denise, my third co-founder, joined us, and she's a growth hacker. She's a product growth person, and that's where we really took it out of the pilot and scaled across Singapore.
And I like the story because it really links to what Shannon you were talking about, that sometimes you bring people from the outside to see from a different perspective and so on. There are so many different ways of starting something and so many different ways of looking at a problem. And one of the things about young people, because they're so digitally native, they tend to see solutions very differently. And I think, Shanru, that's your experience. I'm gonna take a wild bet that your team, that you are working with, that have come on board, were all young people coming together. What is it?
Yeah, definitely at the start. I would say in the first 3 to 5 years, I was pretty much the oldest. And but I think that was important at the start, because when you have limited resources, it's quite difficult to get more senior people in. Yeah. I think the most so-called senior were the co-founders, and honestly, we were not even senior. It was just maybe senior in terms of age, but if you're talking about tech experience, I mean, back then I only had barely a year, so it was really not experienced at all. I think what we found was very interesting about young people was that, not knowing anything, as long as they had that attitude where they really wanted to grow, they were willing to push boundaries. I think that was really what we needed, especially at the start. We still do need that, but I think as we scaled up and now we're in 10 markets and a lot of a larger organization, I think in the past 3 to 4 years, we've actually been bringing in more experienced hires, because we realized that we have different gaps. I mean, you can't have a bunch of kids just always going hard and trying to brute force everything in terms of rolling stuff out. You also need different diverse people from diverse backgrounds to come in and kind of try to pull you back and say hey, divert your energies to this path. And I think that has been very useful also to embrace the different kind of backgrounds and even seniorities, and tap on really rich experiences, and not just think that we just always want this type of people who just want to hack growth.
One of the conversations that we would love to have, and I'm mindful of time, because you made in your presentation about culture misfit to a certain extent, but culture evolve. How difficult it is for you, and I'm also going to bring Charlie into the conversation, because sometime in the nonprofit sector for us, as we evolve and as we change, sometimes the people that start with us, or sometimes the people who have been in the organization for a while, all of a sudden find themselves, hey, I don't feel quite right in this place anymore, or they're not at the same speed or the same pace and so on. How do we transit people? We are in a very loving sector, but it's an important conversation. And from a corporate world, maybe hiring, firing is an easier thing, but I can't imagine for a startup like yours, where you have founding team members or people who have been with you, and then all of a sudden they no longer are in the right space. How do you deal with that?
So I think we look at culture, or we look at fits in terms of performance and culture. So I think for us, culture is very important. So I would say that even as our culture evolves, it won't go too out of whack that we suddenly feel like, hey, people from who have grown with us are suddenly like out of, they no longer fit. It's more of maybe sometimes skills change, or if you're growing at a pace where the company is growing too fast compared to how you're growing, then there are certain tough conversations that need to happen. And I think how we try to deal with that is to really keep it real with each other and say like, hey, what is important to you right now and where do you want to get to? Because let's say if we need someone who's at this level, but you're currently like that, you can't expect to, just be given that title simply because you're with us since the start. So I think for everyone to have that maturity to know that even if, let's say you're a co-founder, or even if you're a member of the founding team, it doesn't mean that you always need to be at the top of the tier of command. I think personally for me, I've never been like, oh, I always need to call the shots. I'm okay to be an individual contributor sometimes. I'm okay to lead certain small teams. So it's about understanding where your strengths lie and playing that to the company's needs. And of course, having the right people who are not too prideful. I think if you have certain people who are like, I don't care, I always need to be at the top, then that's when sometimes we have to part ways. Because that kind of culture fit is no longer there.
Shannon, I want to bring you in because for us in the social sector, that's one conversations we do have. Sometimes we grow and the competency changes to a certain extent. How would you recommend for us who are starting organization building, and there are going to be times where we grow, we have to deal with this problem. So what are your quick thoughts on this?
Social service organizations or social purpose entities are always started by people with a very strong passion for doing good, of serving, the vulnerable. But that's not sufficient. That's not sufficient for the organization to grow and to sustain itself. I think it's really important that having founded an organization, the founders then need to decide, do we want to remain very small, very grassrooty, or do we want to be able to scale up and grow to meet the need in a bigger way? And having decided that, if you decide on the latter, which is you want to be able to scale up to meet the need, then I think it's non-negotiable that you have to focus on organizational development. You can't just be spending all your time hiring counselors or social workers. You have to hire volunteer managers, HR managers, donor engagement managers. You need a management team. You need database systems. You need to, set up standard operating procedures. You need to instill a culture of compliance. In other words, you need to become corporatized. It may sound like a bad word in the social service sector. Oh, we've got people from the private sector coming in. The organization's going to become very corporate. I think that's a good thing. But then it's a corporate with a social mission. Social service organizations should be corporates with a social mission as the key objective, unlike for-profits, which have profits as the objective. So I think it's non-negotiable. Unfortunately, I think for the sector, donors themselves are not so willing to fund these functions, to fund the corporate office. They want to fund a program, they want to fund giving to the beneficiaries. Why is that so? I guess maybe because it's easier to track the KPIs, right? How many people have you fed? How many people have you served? How many people have you counseled? And giving to the organization, the impact of the organization, if measured, takes a much longer time to evaluate. But then I would encourage donors really to recognize that need and to give in an unrestricted manner. And speaking from personal experience at HealthServe, in our earlier years, we were really, really blessed to have had two or three foundations and a corporate who gave us multi-year funding, general funding, no KPIs. I think that you take a bet. To do that, you really need to get to know the organization, the board, the leadership team, and you take a bet on the people. So in a way, it is like VC funding, right? It's a concept, you bet on the people and you trust the people to deliver on your money.
And I like to think that of all the different sectors, the social sector, the charity sector is one that you can really bet on people, because they come with so much passion and want to do so much good. And this is the part where I do want to say the work that NCSS is doing in the capacity building, in creating the resource for bringing people in with what we're doing at the 4ST plays a big part in the conversation.
If you can just give me 2 minutes, and with your indulgence and Danny's indulgence, I'll put in a marketing spiel for NCSS. Some of you may know in 2020 we launched the Community Capability Trust, and this really was a collaboration with MSF and with additional support from Tote Board. Initial funding of 230 million, really to support organizations in the sector on building, their capability and the capacity, spending on organizational development, which we recognize was harder to raise money from. And we also have got a organizational health framework for social services, where organizations can go in and do the assessment and see where their gaps are, and then apply to this trust for funding to improve themselves in the areas where they're lacking in. One last minute. Donations to the CCT, will be matched 2-to-1 up to 2024. ComChest is raising money for this. So for the donors out there, if you want to support this area, CCT is one area to support. The other area is you can join me on the New Horizon Fund.
Hey!
This should be an ongoing fund.
Absolutely.
We've just, seeding it and getting it going, but I really think, this should be an evergreen fund.
Yep. And we're excited because it's a growing sector. We're seeing more of these things coming up. And with 3 board members plus the CE of NCSS here, we'll be more than happy to indulge 2 minutes to talk about the work with NCSS. Time is running out very quickly. I don't want to end without going back to May. We talked very quickly about investing in people, and the New Horizon Fund is investing in folks like yourself. Where can and where will this fund help you grow? I think that's one thing to crystallize for everyone who's listening. And sometimes we see money as just a dollar sign, but money represents progress. Money represents some things that you needed to do but you cannot have. So with this fund, what is helping you?
Yeah, thanks so much, Martin. So, I think we've seen reports out there that the aging population problem is a real thing for us. There are going to be 900,000 seniors above the age of 65 by 2030. And there aren't that many caregivers or young people to take care of a lot of these seniors. I'm going to be one of these seniors one day as well.
60 years time.
Yeah, so it's a real problem for us. And I think, to what Charlie mentioned just now, it's either us as Kampong Kakis remain as a small grassroots organization, or we scale and try and solve this problem. And I think for my co-founders and my team, now that we have 20 people in the core team, we've jointly decided that we do want to scale Kampong Kakis to solve these problems, to alleviate loneliness amongst our seniors. And so this funding, like Charlie mentioned, is really helpful for us because we started sort of like a tech nonprofit, right? We developed a platform, and to sustain this platform and for all the softwares that we are using, we really need this kind of flexible funding for us to continue to use these softwares. And then we are also hoping to hire our first full-timer so that we can have more dedicated focus on the management side of things, becoming that corporate that we aspire to be, and hopefully scale up and have more human resources from there. And I think, there are so many problems, like Bill was mentioning, we are falling in love with the problem, and there are so many ways to solve the problem as well. So we're hoping to really expand our program. Right now, we're a buddy system And now, you know, we're exploring other initiatives, for example, solving the medical escort issues where seniors are not able to go for their appointments because there's no one to bring them to these appointments. So we're exploring all these different problems that surround the needs of our seniors, and we really need flexible funding in order to do so. So, yeah.
That's awesome. You encapsulate what I think Bill was talking about earlier. What you have now is you fell in love with the problem. And you're looking at many different ways of how can we reach out and solve the problem together. Ladies and gentlemen, would you please put your hands to thank our panelists. Thank you very, very much. It's been a wonderful session. And back to you, Kate.
Why, thank you, Martin. Once again, thank you, speakers, panelists, guests, and all of you who are online for joining us today. And as promised earlier, to learn more about the Lamsu New Horizon Fund and the grantee partners, visit us at majurity.sg/New Horizon. I'm going to repeat that again, majurity.sg/New Horizon. All right, on-site guests who would like to find out more about the work of our New Horizon grantee partners, do head to the foyer to speak with our 6 grantee partners who are ever ready to engage with you. Thank you once again for being part of the Majurity Conversations 2020. I'm Katanya, you can call me Kate. I hope you stay positive, test negative, and have a good weekend ahead. Bye!